You were born into a universe 13.8 billion years old. Your galaxy alone contains hundreds of billions of stars. The conditions for life have existed for most of that time. By every calculation, by every model, by every estimation that serious scientists have ever run, you should not be alone. There should be signals. There should be evidence. Instead, there is silence, complete silence. The most thorough search in human history has returned nothing. Tonight, you are going to understand why that silence is not empty, and you are not going to like the answer. Look up at the sky tonight and ask yourself one question. If this galaxy contains 200 to 400 billion stars, and up to 300 million of those stars have planets the right temperature and the right size to support life, and the universe has been running for 13.8 billion years, then where is everyone? You are not asking this in a lab. You are not a scientist waiting for funding. You are a person sitting somewhere right now, in the middle of your ordinary life, and the math around you is broken. Not broken in a minor way, broken in a way that should be the loudest thing in the room. Because if even a tiny fraction of those 300 million habitable planets produced life, and even a fraction of that life produced intelligence, and even a fraction of that intelligence built radios or rockets or anything we could detect, then the sky above your head should be overflowing with signals. It should be impossible to sit in silence, and yet here you are, sitting in silence. You have lived your entire life in a universe so full of potential neighbors that the math screams their existence, and you have never once heard so much as a knock at the door. That silence is not normal. It is not expected. It is not a gap in our technology or a gap in our understanding. It is the most statistically impossible thing about your existence, and you have spent your whole life assuming it meant nothing. What if it means everything? What if the silence you have always lived inside is not neutral? What if it is the most important signal you have ever received and you are only now starting to understand it? The universe is not supposed to be quiet. The math says it should be deafening. 200 to 400 billion stars in just this one galaxy. One galaxy out of roughly 2 trillion in the observable universe. The conditions for life have existed for most of the universe's 13.8 billion year history. Our own star formed 4.6 billion years ago, which means stars nearly twice that age have had nearly twice as long to develop orbiting worlds, chemistry, complexity, and something that asks questions. You are the result of 4 billion years of biology on one planet, around one mid-sized star in one ordinary spiral arm. The universe has had 3 times that long to run that experiment somewhere else. It should have run it millions of times, maybe billions. The result should be everywhere. The result is nowhere, or at least, that is what the silence tells you. And the silence is not a small thing. The silence is total. Every instrument we have pointed at the sky has returned the same answer. Nothing, not a whisper, not a fragment, not a pattern that held up to scrutiny. Just the hiss of background radiation and the perfectly natural noise of a universe that appears, by every measure, to contain only us. You are not supposed to be this alone. The fact that you are is the thing this is about. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence has been running since 1960. That is over 60 years of listening. The project called SETI at home ran for years, pulling in data from volunteers worldwide, processing it on millions of personal computers simultaneously. In total, it analyzed 12 billion candidate signals. 12 billion. Each one screened, filtered, run through algorithms, and checked by human eyes when the numbers flagged something unusual. 100 signals made it to the finalist list. 100 signals out of 12 billion, selected because they had properties that looked like they might be real. Then scientists went back and checked every single one of them. Every single finalist was explained. Radio frequency interference from terrestrial sources, satellite reflections, atmospheric noise, equipment artifacts, software anomalies. Every candidate that had seemed worth a second look turned out to be something mundane. The most distributed scientific computing project in human history produced a result you could fit on a single line: 0. The Breakthrough Listen initiative, launched in 2015 with $100 million from investor Yuri Milner. It is scanning 1 million nearby stars using the most sensitive radio receivers ever built for this purpose. As of today, it has confirmed 0 signals of extraterrestrial origin. 0. This is not a budget problem. This is not a technology problem. You cannot look at those numbers and conclude we have not tried hard enough. We have pointed our best instruments at the sky for decades. We have processed more data than any single mind could hold. We have dedicated serious money and serious careers to this, and the sky answered with nothing. What makes this disturbing is not the result in isolation. It is the result against the backdrop of the math. 200 to 400 billion stars in this galaxy alone. 60 plus years of listening. 12 billion candidates. 100 finalists. 0 confirmed signals. That ratio is not what you get from an empty universe. That ratio is what you get from a universe that is either stranger than you imagined or more dangerous than you feared. Before you decide which, you need to know about the one exception. The one time the silence broke. It lasted 72 seconds, and then it was gone. On August 15, 1977, a volunteer researcher named Jerry Emmon was reviewing paper printout data from a telescope in Ohio. The telescope was called Big Ear. It was a fixed radio dish that worked by letting Earth's rotation sweep the sky past it, like a lighthouse whose beam is held still while the ocean rotates. Emmon was doing the work that most people who search for signals do, reading numbers on paper, looking for patterns, finding nothing. Then he found something. A sequence of characters in the printout read 6, E, Q, U, J, 5. That encoding represented signal intensity. The maximum intensity the telescope could print was the letter U. The signal peaked at the letter U, held there, and then dropped back down, 30 times stronger than the background noise of the universe. The signal was centered on 1420 megahertz. That frequency is called the hydrogen line. Hydrogen is the most common element in the universe. In the 1950s, scientists had predicted that any civilization intelligent enough to build a radio transmitter would also be intelligent enough to choose this frequency for long-range communication. It is the universal frequency. Every species that knows physics knows this frequency. The signal was narrowband, meaning it did not spread across frequencies the way natural sources do. It behaved like a transmission. It rose and fell in intensity exactly as a point source in deep space would, as Earth's rotation slowly moved Big Ear's field of view past it. Eamon circled the printout and wrote one word in the margin: wow. The signal lasted exactly 72 seconds. That is how long a fixed point in the sky stays in Big Ear's field of view as Earth rotates. The telescope was pointed at that region of sky again that night. Nothing. It was pointed there hundreds of times over the following years. Nothing. Nearly 50 years of follow-up observations have produced nothing. Subsequent analysis ruled out Earth-based interference. The signal's origin remains unexplained. The Big Ear telescope, which caught the only signal that has ever met every technical criterion for alien transmission, was demolished in 1998. The land was used to expand a golf course. The most significant moment in the history of the search for intelligent life was recorded by one man with a red pen. And then, the instrument that made it possible was torn down and replaced with a putting green. Enrico Fermi was one of the physicists who built the first nuclear reactor. He received the Nobel Prize in 1938. He was, by all accounts, a man who did not ask questions casually. In the summer of 1950, he was walking to lunch at Los Alamos National Laboratory with 3 colleagues, Emil Konopinski, Edward Teller, and Herbert York. They had been talking about a recent cartoon in The New Yorker, a joke about flying saucers. The conversation moved on. Then, at the table, Fermi suddenly asked a question that had nothing to do with the cartoon. He asked, "Where is everybody?" His colleagues immediately understood what he meant. Not where are the other people at lunch? Where are the other civilizations? The other spacefaring species? The other intelligences that should, by the math of stars and time, have been developing for billions of years before us? Fermi did not wait for an answer. He started calculating at the table. He estimated the probability that any star has planets, the probability that any planet develops life, the probability that life becomes intelligent, the probability that intelligence builds spacecraft. He concluded that Earth should have been visited many times already by many different civilizations, long before the human species existed. Then he finished his lunch. He never published the calculation. He died 4 years later at 53. We know the conversation happened only because 3 people remembered it. Now consider what the numbers say. A self-replicating probe traveling at 1/40th the speed of light could visit every star system in the Milky Way in under 10 million years. 10 million years. The Milky Way is 13.6 billion years old. That means a civilization that arose just 0.07% earlier than us in galactic history has had more than enough time to send probes to every planet in this galaxy. Every planet, including the one you are sitting on right now, including the one your body is made of. That civilization would not need to travel faster than light. It would not need to break any laws of physics. It would need to exist, build probes, and wait. And the galaxy has had 13.6 billion years to produce one civilization that did that. It produced, as far as we can tell, none. The math says that is impossible. Fermi said it over lunch. And then it killed him, slowly, for 4 years, without an answer. Stop moving for a moment. You are made of atoms that were forged inside stars. The carbon in your body was built inside stars that died billions of years ago. The iron in your blood was produced in a supernova. You are not separate from the universe. You are a temporary arrangement of the universe, examining itself. And this arrangement of atoms, sitting wherever you are right now, exists inside a galaxy that has been forming stars for 13.6 billion years. Life on Earth took roughly 4 billion years to produce something capable of asking questions. The galaxy has had more than 3 times that long to run the same experiment. 3 times the history of all life on Earth. That is the number sitting quietly behind everything. 3 times. And yet no trace. No signal that held up. No probe parked in orbit. No artifact in the rock. No pattern in the noise that pointed anywhere but here. Look at those numbers together. 300 million potentially habitable planets. 13.6 billion years. 60 plus years of the most thorough search human civilization has ever conducted. Total silence. The silence is not an absence of data. It is a data point. It tells you something is wrong with the picture you had before you started listening. Not wrong in the sense of a small miscalculation. Wrong in the sense that the universe should be filled with the noise of other minds, and it is not. And there are exactly 2 kinds of explanation for that. Either life is so rare that this entire galaxy produced only us, against the backdrop of 300 million chances, or life appears, builds things, and then stops. Something stops it. Something acts on civilizations the way cold acts on a fire. It does not matter where the fire is. It does not matter how hot it burns. The cold finds it eventually. You are a fire. You have been burning for about 100 years, in radio terms. And the silence around you is not empty space. It is the shape of what happens to fires. In 1961, astronomer Frank Drake stood at a blackboard before a small conference at Green Bank, West Virginia, and wrote an equation. He did not intend it as a prediction. He intended it as a structure for a conversation. What do we need to know to estimate how many communicating civilizations exist in the Milky Way right now? The equation multiplied variables together. The rate of star formation, the fraction of those stars with planets, the fraction of those planets in habitable zones, the fraction of habitable planets where life actually appears, the fraction of life-bearing planets where intelligence evolves, the fraction of intelligent species that build detectable technology, and the average length of time those civilizations remain detectable before they go silent or cease to exist. Plug in optimistic estimates, and you get 15.6 million civilizations in the Milky Way right now. 15 million. Active, communicating, potentially spacefaring civilizations within this one galaxy. Plug in pessimistic estimates, and you get fewer than one. Fewer than one is the polite mathematical way of saying we might be a fluke, a statistical error. The one time the universe accidentally produced something that asks questions. Both answers come from the same equation. And here is why that is not a problem with the math. The math is working perfectly. The equation is doing exactly what Drake intended. It is showing you where the uncertainty lives. Every variable that optimists set high represents a step where life almost always succeeds. Every variable that pessimists set low represents a step where almost everything dies. The equation cannot tell you which version is true. It can only tell you that one of them must be. And the silence above you is the only evidence you have for deciding which. 15 million civilizations in this galaxy, and not one confirmed signal. That means either the pessimists are right and the numbers are brutal, or the optimists are right and something is killing 15 million civilizations before they can reach us. The equation was supposed to help us find the answer. Instead, it defined the shape of the question, and the question is this: at what step in the chain does almost everything stop? In 1998, an economist named Robin Hanson at George Mason University published a paper, not about markets, not about policy, about death, specifically about the death of civilizations at a scale no one had formalized before. The paper was called The Great Filter. The logic was simple and inescapable. If intelligent life should be everywhere, and it is not everywhere, then something is blocking it, not occasionally, almost universally. There is a filter on the path from dead chemistry to a galaxy-spanning civilization. The filter is a step so difficult, so unlikely, that almost nothing passes through it. Hansen identified the candidates. The emergence of life from chemistry, the jump from simple cells to complex ones with nuclei, which took roughly 2 billion years on Earth, the development of multicellular organisms, the evolution of tool-using intelligence, the survival of an intelligent species through its own technology long enough to reach the stars. Any one of these steps could be the filter, possibly several of them together. The horror is not the existence of the filter. The horror is the question of where it sits in the timeline. If the filter is behind you, you are lucky. Impossibly, improbably lucky. Life is extraordinarily rare. You cleared a barrier that almost nothing clears. The galaxy is mostly empty, and you are its exception. If the filter is ahead of you, the picture is different. It means life appears relatively easily. It means intelligence is not as rare as we feared. It means civilizations form, develop technology, build radio telescopes, and then hit a wall that stops nearly all of them. And that wall is somewhere between the civilization you have right now and the stars. You do not know how far away it is. You do not know what it looks like. You only know that almost everyone who reached your current stage did not clear it. The question is not whether the filter exists. The silence proves it does. The question is how close you are to it. Nick Bostrom is a philosopher at Oxford. He is known for thinking carefully about the kinds of risk that most people find too large or too abstract to sit with. He wrote an essay about the Fermi Paradox that ends with a line most people read twice. He argued that finding life on Mars would be, in his words, the most terrifying discovery in human history. Not a triumph, not a scientific milestone to celebrate. Terrifying. The reasoning is direct. If Mars developed life independently of Earth, even ancient microbial fossils in billion-year-old rock, That means life is not rare. Life emerges wherever conditions allow. Chemistry produces biology reliably, which means the filter is not in the origin of life, which means the filter lies somewhere between a bacterium and a spaceship, somewhere between the first replicating molecule on Mars and the point where a civilization builds radio telescopes and goes looking for others. That somewhere is the span of human history. That somewhere is the species you belong to at the exact stage of development you are at right now. Every Mars rover currently drilling into the surface is running this test. Every sample it analyzes is either evidence that the filter is behind you or evidence that it is in front of you. Every gram of Martian soil that comes back with nothing in it is, for Bostrom, good news. Specific, measurable, important good news. Each barren sample shifts the probability slightly that the hardest step was getting life started, and you have already cleared it. So far, the rovers have found no confirmed life. So far, the word is doing heavy work in that sentence because the search is not over. The instruments are in the ground right now. The test is running. And if the answer changes, the implications do not update slowly. They update completely. Everything you thought you understood about where the danger is would be wrong. The danger would be here, right ahead. Think through the list of things that could end a civilization. Asteroid impacts. Earth has been hit before, and the consequences were extinction level. Supervolcanic eruptions. They have caused mass extinctions more than once in this planet's history. Gamma-ray bursts. A burst within 10,000 light-years of Earth would strip the ozone layer and bathe the surface in lethal radiation within minutes, with no warning and no defense. Runaway climate change. This planet has experienced it before, without any civilization involved. Pandemics. The history of life on Earth includes extinction events driven by microbial agents. Nuclear war. You do not need to imagine this one. The weapons exist. Artificial intelligence with goals misaligned from human survival. This is not theoretical. It is a subject of active research and concern among the people building it. Engineered pathogens. The tools required to design them have existed for decades. Resource collapse. Civilizations that exhaust their energy or ecological base do not automatically rebuild. Not one of these threats requires exotic physics. Not one requires a scenario that has never happened. All of them are real, and all of them have come close at least once in the short span of human history. Now consider the silence. If even 1% of civilizations cleared all of these threats and survived long enough to build self-replicating probes, this galaxy would be full of those probes. Full. The galaxy is not full. The galaxy is empty. That means the survival rate is not 1%. The math requires it to be close to 0. Whatever the filter is, it works almost every time, across billions of years, across millions of chances. Something kills civilizations at a rate that approaches 100% efficiency, and it does it so completely that not one species in 13.6 billion years has left a permanent trace you can detect. You need to sit with that number, close to 100%. Not some, not most, almost all. Sit here with what you know. The galaxy has been here for 13.6 billion years. Life had nearly the entire history of the universe to appear, evolve, and fill this place. It should have done that at least a few million times. Instead, you hear nothing. Not one signal held up, not one probe has been found in orbit. Not one structure has been identified in the asteroid belt that did not come from natural processes. The search was serious, the money was real, the decades were spent, and the silence is not partial. It is complete. That completeness is doing something to you right now, and it is doing it at a level that is harder to articulate than a fact. You are a living thing. You exist inside a universe that appears to have swallowed every other living thing whole. The civilizations that came before you, if they existed, sent nothing forward. Left no monument you can find, did not reach back across time and write down what the danger is. They were here, Billions of years of potential history, whole civilizations burning like fires in the dark, and then they were not. And the gap between those two things is the silence you have lived your whole life inside. Here is the question that changes how the next part of this sits. What if the smart civilizations, the ones that survived, are the ones you cannot find? What if the species that figured something out went dark? What if going silent is the answer? What if the silence around you right now is the sound of something that learned better than to make noise? Because if that is the answer, the next question is not philosophical, it is personal. You have been making noise for over 100 years. You have been broadcasting your location, your biology, your intelligence, and your coordinates into the dark. You did not ask whether that was wise. You just started talking. Think about what your civilization is doing right now without knowing it. Every radio tower, every television broadcast, every military radar sweep, every navigation ping, all of it radiates outward from Earth at the speed of light. It has been doing this for roughly 100 years. That means there is a sphere of noise expanding in every direction from your planet. Right now, while you watch this, it is now somewhere between 80 and 130 light years wide. Inside that sphere sit thousands of star systems. Anyone inside that bubble with the right equipment can hear you. They can hear your earliest radio transmissions from the early 1900s. They can hear military radar frequencies from the 1940s. They can hear the television signals your species has been broadcasting since the 1950s. They can hear the specific frequencies your civilization chose to communicate on. They can hear the patterns, the repetition, the signatures of a mind at work. You did not plan this. No one held a meeting and decided to announce humanity's existence to the galaxy. You started broadcasting for internal purposes because it was useful. The signals went out and kept going. They are still going right now. Every cell tower, every satellite uplink, every radar station is adding to that bubble, growing it, making it louder by the minute. Here is what the bubble tells anyone listening. Your location. This is confirmed. The signals radiate from a single point in space. Anyone who detects them can triangulate the source to within a handful of light years. Your biology. This is inference. But the math checks out. The frequencies you chose, the structure of your communications, the modulation patterns your technology produces. These carry information about the kind of brain that designed them. Your intelligence. This is confirmed. Random noise does not encode language. Your signals carry the fingerprint of a mind. You are, right now, the loudest object in your neighborhood of the galaxy. Your civilization emits electromagnetic radiation in every direction, continuously, and has done so for a century. That is what you look like from the outside. Now here is the part that sits differently once you accept that the silence out there is total. Every civilization with the capacity to respond has been silent. They heard your bubble approaching, or they will. They have not answered. You assumed silence meant emptiness. You assumed the galaxy was waiting for someone to speak, so you spoke. You kept speaking. You built more towers and more satellites and more radar arrays and more broadcast infrastructure. You did not ask whether the silence was a warning. You did not ask whether the species that went quiet knew something about the consequences of making noise. You did not look at a century of total quiet and wonder why every civilization capable of communication had chosen against it. You just started talking. The signal is out there now. The game shows, and the military radar sweeps, and the navigation pings, and 50 years of television broadcasts. 100 years of evidence that this planet hosts something intelligent. 100 years of coordinates, transmitted openly, continuously, in every direction. You cannot take it back. The bubble has already passed through thousands of star systems. Whatever was going to detect it has had the time to do so. Here is the question that makes the rest of this personal. Silence is only a strategy if there is something to be silent against. The civilizations that went quiet did not go quiet because they were shy. They went quiet because they understood what happens when you make noise in a place where being found has consequences. What you are surviving against is whatever taught every other civilization in this galaxy that the right answer to discovering you were not alone was to say nothing, and to keep saying nothing forever. In 2008, a Chinese author named Liu Cixin published a science fiction novel called The Dark Forest. The logic inside it is built on two axioms. First, every civilization's primary goal is survival. Second, resources in the universe are finite. You can argue with neither of these without assuming something your own history contradicts at every turn. From those two axioms, a conclusion follows. It follows the way a proof follows in mathematics. You can work through the steps yourself. If you encounter another civilization, and you cannot know with certainty whether it is friendly, and the cost of trusting a hostile civilization is the end of your species, then the rational move is to destroy it. Destroy it before it can destroy you. Destroy it before it even knows you exist. The calculation is cold and simple. The cost of being wrong about a friendly civilization, you destroyed something that meant you no harm. The cost of being wrong about a hostile civilization, your species ends. Given any probability at all that the other civilization is dangerous, the math returns the same answer every time. Strike first. This is not about hatred. It is not about war being inevitable. It is about the structure of the problem. A civilization advanced enough to cross interstellar distances is a civilization advanced enough to do this math. Doing this math means arriving at this answer. Arriving at this answer means that any civilization you encounter, by the time you can encounter it, already knows what is required. The dark forest is the galaxy. Every civilization inside it is a hunter, moving without sound, hiding its output, watching the dark for signs that something else is alive. The moment it detects another civilization, it faces a decision with a deadline. Move first, or risk being moved against. The civilizations that hesitated, the ones that hoped for friendship, the ones that sent greetings into the void and waited for a reply, those civilizations are not here to describe what happened. The silence you observe is the sound of concealment. Every civilization that understood the logic of the dark forest went quiet. They suppressed their emissions. They pulled their signals inward. They became invisible and, in doing so, became dangerous. A civilization that is hiding is a civilization that is also watching. A civilization that is watching is calculating whether you have reached the threshold that requires action. Your civilization has been broadcasting for 100 years. Your radio bubble is the loudest advertisement in this section of the galaxy. You announced your location. You announced your intelligence. You announced, with every signal you sent, that something alive and building and growing is here at these coordinates. If the dark forest is real, two possible responses exist. Silence, because whatever detected your broadcast is still calculating, or something you will never see coming, because the first rule of the dark forest is that you do not announce your strike. You are quiet until the moment the target stops existing. There is no observation that disproves the dark forest. The galaxy's silence is consistent with it. A signal from another civilization would also be consistent with it. A civilization that has not yet understood the game, or a civilization using the signal as bait. Every observation you can make fits inside this framework. That is not a coincidence. That is what it looks like when a model is correct. You are broadcasting. You have been broadcasting for 100 years. That is your current position in the game. Go back to August 15th, 1977. A radio telescope in Ohio called Big Ear is scanning the sky. A volunteer researcher named Jerry Eman is reviewing the printout from that night's observation. He reaches a column of characters and stops. The signal is 30 times stronger than the background noise. 30 times. He circles the numbers in red pen and writes one word in the margin. Wow. The signal meets every technical criterion that researchers had established for a transmission of intelligent origin. It arrives at 1420 MHz. This is the frequency of neutral hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe. It is the frequency researchers had theorized any intelligent civilization would choose for interstellar communication, because any civilization capable of radio astronomy would know that other civilizations know hydrogen. The signal is narrowband. Natural radio sources spread across frequencies. This one was focused. It rises and falls with the rotation of Earth exactly as a signal from a fixed point in deep space would. It lasts 72 seconds, the exact duration of Big Ear's observation window passing over a stationary source. Every technical box checked. It was detected once. Decades of follow-up observations pointed at the same region of sky. Multiple telescopes, multiple searches. Nothing came back. The signal appeared once, and the universe returned to silence. Natural explanations exist, and researchers have pursued each of them. Comets with hydrogen clouds passing between Earth and the source. A reflection from an unusual atmospheric layer. A satellite with a misidentified frequency. These explanations have problems. None of them fully account for all the characteristics simultaneously. The WOW signal is officially unexplained. That status is confirmed. Now, place the WOW signal inside the dark forest model. This is theory, but the math checks out. A civilization exists somewhere in that direction of sky. It transmits once, perhaps by accident, perhaps as a deliberate test of whether anything in the neighborhood is listening. It detects, or fears, that its transmission was received. It understands what that means. It goes silent immediately and permanently. That interpretation fits every observation. Or, a civilization transmits. Something else in the galaxy detects the emission. That something else moves. The civilization that transmitted is silenced before it can transmit again. That interpretation also fits every observation. Both produce the same data point. One signal, total silence afterward. What you received in 1977, if the dark forest is real, was a civilization making a mistake, possibly its final mistake. The signal that came through was not the start of a relationship. It was the sound of someone breaking cover in a place where breaking cover has consequences. The 72 seconds of that transmission may represent everything that civilization ever said to the wider universe. You celebrated it. You pointed more telescopes at the sky. You listened for more. The fact that nothing more came should have prompted a specific question. It did not. Here is the question. A civilization capable of producing that signal had mastered radio astronomy. It had worked out the physics. It understood what 1420 MHz meant. It was not a primitive civilization. It knew what it was doing when it transmitted. And it never transmitted again. Your civilization has been transmitting continuously for 100 years. You have put 100 times more broadcast time into the sky than whatever produced the WOW signal. You have received no response. Ask yourself whether silence in response is the good outcome here or the bad one. There are two places the great filter can sit. Either it is behind you or it is ahead. If it is behind you, life is extremely rare. The path from chemistry to cells to complex organisms to intelligence runs through hurdles so improbable that almost nothing clears them. The silence is emptiness, because the galaxy is genuinely empty. Your civilization survived barriers that ended everything else, and you are here in a universe that is otherwise dead. If the filter is ahead, the math runs a different way. Life appears when conditions allow. Civilizations form, they grow, they reach, and then something stops them. The silence is aftermath. Every civilization before you reach the filter and the filter won. You have not reached it yet. That is all that separates you from everything that came before. Only one of these can be correct. Now add a data point from 2024. Astronomers used the James Webb Space Telescope to analyze the atmosphere of a planet called K218b. This planet orbits a star 124 light-years from Earth, inside the habitable zone. Liquid water on the surface is plausible. The Webb telescope detected a chemical signature, dimethyl sulfide. On Earth, this molecule is produced exclusively by marine living organisms, algae, phytoplankton, biological processes in the ocean. Dimethyl sulfide does not form through geological chemistry. It requires biology. On Earth, that fact is confirmed. The detection confidence for K218b was 3 sigma. That translates to roughly a 1 in 370 chance that the signal is random noise. Scientists call it tentative. They call it preliminary. They are waiting for more data before making stronger claims. 3 sigma is the threshold physicists used for decades before calling something real. A 1 in 370 chance of noise is not a weak signal. It is a strong one. Here is what that detection does to the Great Filter. If life exists on K218b, then the first habitable planet examined closely by your most powerful telescope carries biosignatures. That is a small sample. 1 planet, a limited observation window. Finding biology on the first try implies biology is common. It implies the universe produces life readily when the conditions allow. It implies the galaxy is full of planets that went from chemistry to living organisms. If life is common, the filter is ahead. The path to life is easy. The path past civilization is the wall. Something separates civilizations from permanence, and the separation happens before they leave a detectable trace. That wall is somewhere in front of you. Your civilization is a certain distance from that wall right now. You are walking toward it. Every civilization before you walk toward it. Your direction is not in question. Only the distance is unknown. K218b. Data is still being collected. The 3 sigma result is waiting for the 4 sigma and 5 sigma confirmations that move it from tentative to established. When those numbers come back, they will tell you something about which version of the universe you live in, the one where the filter is behind you, or the one where you are still approaching it. You are approaching it either way. That is the structure of the situation you are in. You are a civilization that grows and reaches and builds. Whatever the filter is, it sits at the end of that process, and the process is running. Stop for a moment. Look at the picture. You are now standing inside. You started with a number, 300 million habitable planets in this galaxy, 13.6 billion years of time. The calculation that says intelligence should have appeared here many times over. The confirmed observation that the expected signs of that intelligence are absent. No signals held up, no probes found. The search was real, and the silence is total. You know this. You added the possibility that life crossed between planets in your own solar system, the Mars evidence. The implication that if life can move between planets, the barrier between chemistry and biology is low. Life does not require extraordinary luck. Life appears when conditions allow. You added the wow. Signal, 1 transmission meeting every criterion for intelligent origin, from a direction in the sky that has gone permanently silent. Either a civilization that understood too late what transmitting means, or a civilization that transmitted and was answered in a way it did not survive. You added the dark forest, the 2 axioms and the mathematical conclusion that any civilization capable of destroying you has the rational incentive to do so before you can become a threat. The observation that the galaxy's silence is consistent with this. The model that cannot be disproved by any data point you can collect. You added K218b, the tentative biosignature. The implication that if life is common, the filter sits ahead of you. Put all of it into one picture. Hold it still. The galaxy is a graveyard. Billions of years of life appearing. Civilizations forming, building, expanding, reaching outward, and then stopping. The stopping is the constant across all of it. Whatever the mechanism is, it works. It has worked every time. 13.8 billion years of cosmic history, and the scoreboard shows 0 permanent civilizations. Zero signals that held up. Zero structures that could only be artificial. The record of the mechanism is perfect. You are inside this graveyard right now. Your atoms were forged in stars that burned and died before the Earth formed. Your planet is 4.5 billion years old. Your civilization is a few thousand years old. Your radio bubble is 100 years old. You are very new here. Everything that was here before you is gone. The graves have no markers. That is part of what makes this so hard to sit with. You cannot point to the wreckage. You cannot read the evidence of what went wrong. The graves are made of silence. The tombstones are the gap between the number of civilizations that should exist and the number you can detect. You walk through a cemetery that looks like open space. Now ask yourself directly, what are you? You are a civilization that appeared inside a galaxy-scale graveyard. You started talking before you understood the rules. You looked at the silence and heard emptiness. You built and expanded and reached and broadcast without asking why everything that could have done the same thing had not. You are here. You are alive. You are broadcasting. And you do not yet know whether being alive right now means the filter is behind you or whether it means you are still walking toward it. To understand what is ahead, you have to understand how a civilization is forced to think when it discovers it is not alone. By math, by survival, by the logic of a universe where resources run out and you only get one chance to be wrong. Game theory is the mathematics of decisions when outcomes depend on what someone else chooses. It does not assume good intentions or malicious ones. It calculates what rational actors are forced to do when stakes are high enough and information is incomplete. Run the scenario. Two civilizations become aware of each other across interstellar distances. Neither can read the other's intentions. The nearest star systems are 4 light-years away. A message takes 4 years to arrive. A response takes 4 more. Any real exchange of information happens across decades. You cannot read behavior in real time across that gap. You cannot verify a promise. You cannot confirm a warning fast enough to act on it. Trust across interstellar distances requires you to commit before you know what you are committing to. Each civilization faces the same structure. If the other civilization is friendly, cooperating costs nothing and gains a potential ally. If the other civilization is hostile, cooperating costs your species its existence. If the other civilization is friendly and you strike first, you destroyed something harmless. If the other civilization is hostile and you strike first, you survived. The asymmetry is severe. The cost of wrong trust is extinction. The cost of a wrong preemptive strike is a moral injury. You have to be alive to feel it. When you assign any probability at all to the possibility that the other civilization is hostile, even a small one, the calculation returns the same answer. Strike first. Eliminate the variable before the variable can act. This is confirmed by game theory. Mathematicians have worked through this for decades. The math checks out. This logic does not require hatred. It requires only the recognition that you exist in a universe where another civilization might one day need what you have, might one day feel threatened by your growth, might one day calculate that you are the variable requiring elimination. The moment you understand that another civilization is applying the same logic to you that you are applying to them, the outcome of the game is locked. The silence is the solution to this game. Every player who grasped the rules went invisible. They communicate, if at all, in ways you cannot intercept. They do not build the infrastructure you would expect from an advanced civilization, because that infrastructure is visible and visible is how you lose. The winners of this game are exactly the civilizations you will never find. The losers are also the civilizations you will never find, but for a different reason. Your civilization has been playing this game for 100 years. You announced your presence. You sent probes outside the solar system. You accelerated in every direction that could be observed. Every major technology your civilization developed in the last century changed your detectable profile. The acceleration curve itself is visible. Any observer watching this star system over decades can see the slope and calculate where it goes. A civilization that has survived long enough to implement this strategy across interstellar distances to stay hidden for geological timescales did not just learn to hide, it learned to enforce. It built systems to ensure other civilizations had to choose between hiding and disappearing. It became the reason the dark forest has rules. What does that civilization look like from the inside? What does it build to maintain a silence that covers the galaxy? The Kardashev scale gives civilization a rank based on energy use. Type I controls all the energy available on its home planet. Type II controls the full energy output of its star system, every photon captured and redirected. Type III controls the energy output of an entire galaxy, all of it, every star, every watt. Your civilization sits at roughly 0.7 on this scale. You have not yet harnessed the full energy available to you on Earth. You burn coal and split atoms and build solar panels and cover a fraction of what is available. Type I is still ahead of you. Type II is far ahead. Type III is so far beyond your current position that imagining it requires you to compress the entire history of human civilization into a single morning and accept that Type III might take the rest of the year. Here is what makes Type III important to this. A civilization at that energy level cannot hide its existence from the rest of the universe passively. The waste heat alone from powering a galaxy-spanning empire would appear in infrared surveys of nearby galaxies as an anomaly. Galaxies have characteristic energy signatures based on stellar processes. A civilization redirecting that energy would leave a distortion in the signature. The distortion would be visible from millions of light years away. It would be impossible to miss. Astronomers have searched for exactly this. They have surveyed millions of galaxies looking for infrared excess, for heat signatures inconsistent with natural stellar processes, for the energy fingerprint of a Type III civilization at work. The confirmed count of Type III civilizations in the observable universe is 0. The universe has had 13.8 billion years to produce 1, 0. Two explanations fit this result. The first, the filter ends civilizations before they reach Type III. Something kills them at an earlier stage, every time, reliably enough that 13.8 billion years of cosmic history has produced 0 exceptions. The second, Type III civilizations exist and actively suppress their own energy signature. They manage their heat output. They capture and redirect waste energy in ways that make an entire galaxy look, from the outside, indistinguishable from a natural one with no civilization inside it. The second explanation is worth sitting with. To hide a Type III energy signature, you have to control every energy process across an entire galaxy, every star's output, every source of waste heat. You have to build systems capable of operating at galactic scale with precision fine enough to pass for nature. That level of engineering has no comparison in anything your species has ever built or imagined building. A civilization capable of that level of control is not just hiding, it is managing what exists. It is making decisions about what is allowed to emit, what is allowed to be visible, what is allowed to persist. It has been doing this for long enough that no outside observer can see the seam between the managed galaxy and a natural one. Management at that scale implies enforcement. You do not hide a galaxy-spanning civilization through passive means. You suppress anything that breaks cover, anything that broadcasts, anything that accelerates toward visibility, anything that might eventually be detectable. Your civilization sits at 0.7. You are accelerating. Each decade, your energy use increases. Each decade, your profile becomes more visible. You are moving toward the thresholds that make you worth noticing. The zoo hypothesis is one of the most cited answers to why the galaxy is silent. It goes like this. Advanced civilizations exist. They know you are here. They have decided, for reasons of their own, to leave you alone. Your solar system has been designated a preserve. They observe. They do not contact. They have established some kind of boundary around your civilization, and they enforce it silently from the outside. People find this comforting. Think through what it actually requires, and that feeling goes away. Start with capability. The zoo hypothesis requires that something out there has the ability to monitor every star system in the galaxy continuously. It knows which systems have life. It knows which have intelligence. It has a classification for each and a policy for each. It maintains this policy across interstellar distances over geological timescales. This is a civilization, or an organization, with reach that covers the galaxy and operational consistency that has held longer than complex life has existed on Earth. Now, think about what it means that this entity has made a judgment about your species. It looked at you, it evaluated you, it decided something about your category. You did not participate in this evaluation. You were not consulted. You did not get to argue your case or provide evidence or appeal the decision. Something that operates at a scale you cannot comprehend examined your planet, classified what it found, and made a determination about your future. The silence is a decision about you. It was made by something you cannot see, cannot contact, cannot reason with, and cannot appeal to. Your civilization has no representative in that process. You are behind glass. The exhibit is your planet. The curator did not ask permission. Every zoo has a policy. Policies define criteria. Criteria have thresholds. As long as the exhibit behaves within the expected parameters, the policy holds. The exhibit is left alone because it is manageable, because it is contained, because what it does falls inside what the policy was written to handle. Think about what your exhibit has been doing. For most of human history, you were manageable. You used fire. You built cities. You farmed. You fought wars with sharp metal. The policy held. Then you split the atom. You built nuclear weapons. You developed missiles capable of reaching beyond your atmosphere. You built machines that compute. You launched probes outside the solar system. You sent radio signals for 100 years that have now propagated into the wider galaxy. You are currently designing systems intended to reach other stars. The criteria the policy was written against have changed. The exhibit is doing things the original classification may not have anticipated. An exhibit that builds radio telescopes and points them at the zoo curator's neighborhood is different from the exhibit that was first classified. The policy may need revision. What does a zoo do with an animal that starts reaching for the fence? What does a curator do when the exhibit begins developing capabilities that the policy was not designed to contain? Every zoo has protocols for animals that outgrow their enclosure. You have been growing for 100 years and accelerating. The fence is not as far away as it used to be. The zoo hypothesis says you are being watched and protected. The dark forest says you are being watched and evaluated for elimination. These two pictures are presented as opposites. They are not. A galaxy with enough civilizations in it, each operating under different rules, each at different stages of development, each running different calculations, contains both at once. Some survive by hiding. Some survive by watching. Some survive by eliminating anything that looks like it might eventually become dangerous. Your solar system sits inside all of this simultaneously. In 2026, here is your profile. Your radio bubble covers more than 100 light-years in every direction. It contains the electromagnetic signatures of 100 years of civilization. It is still expanding. It entered star systems years ago. The evaluation, if any civilization inside that bubble ran one, has already had time to begin. Your civilization currently holds nuclear weapons. This is confirmed. Enough warheads to end most life on this planet multiple times. Your artificial intelligence systems are accelerating in capability faster than your governance structures can adapt to them. This is confirmed and ongoing. You have probes outside the solar system. Voyager 1 is roughly 14 billion miles from the star. Voyager 2 trails behind it. Both carry maps of this solar system. Both carry information showing how to find Earth. You put those maps on the probes deliberately. If something has been monitoring this star system since before complex life appeared here, it has a 4 billion year record. It watched microbes appear. It watched them diversify. It watched the first animals move from sea to land. It watched primates develop language. It watched your civilization go from animal hides to nuclear reactors in a geological instant. The most recent century of that record shows an acceleration curve with no historical precedent in your own history. From your first radio transmission to your first nuclear weapon, 45 years. From your first nuclear weapon to your first satellite, 12 years. From that first satellite to landing on another body, 12 years. From that landing to now, an ongoing sprint. An observer with a long baseline sees the slope and knows what it implies. The slope does not flatten on its own. Either you destroy your cells, which removes the variable, or you reach the technologies that make the variable worth addressing for other reasons. The decision about your civilization, whether to observe, whether to intervene, whether to act in any other way, was made or is being made by something you cannot see. It uses criteria you cannot access. It operates on a timeline you do not control. You do not get to vote on when the review concludes. Here is the last layer of this. Assume civilizations have been building monitoring systems across the galaxy for billions of years. Some of those civilizations ended. Their monitoring systems did not end with them. The hardware was built to last. The instructions were written into the operating logic. The criteria for what triggers a response were fixed at the time of construction. There is no one to override the system. There is no update to the policy. The original parameters run. These systems have no malice. They carry no emotion in any direction. They have only the instructions they were given. The instructions execute across the galaxy for longer than Earth has existed. They watch for the signatures that match the response criteria. Your civilization looks different than it did 100 years ago. It looks more like something the parameters were written to address. Pull back one more time. You are 3/4 through this. Let the architecture settle before the final section begins. You started with numbers. 300 million habitable planets in this galaxy. 13.6 billion years of cosmic history. The expectation, derived from physics and chemistry and probability, that intelligence should have risen and filled this place many times over. The confirmed observation that the expected evidence of that intelligence is absent. The silence is total. The search was real. The conclusion is not optional. You added the filter. The evidence that something separates the civilizations that appear from the civilizations that persist. The two possible locations for that filter. The K218b biosignature that tentatively places life in the easy category, which moves the filter to a position ahead of you, which means you are walking toward it. You added the dark forest. The two axioms and the mathematical conclusion that any civilization capable of threatening you has the rational incentive to eliminate you before you can threaten it. The game theory that locks every advanced civilization into the same strategy. The absence of any observation that could disprove this. You added the infrastructure. Type 3 civilizations that should be visible and are not. A galaxy that, under the zoo hypothesis, is being actively managed. Monitoring systems old enough to have outlived their creators. Machines running original instructions across geological timescales with no one to stop them. Here is the picture you now have. The silence is a mechanism. It has operated continuously across billions of years. It takes civilizations in and produces nothing detectable on the other side. The input is a civilization that reaches a certain threshold of visibility or capability. The output is silence. The mechanism between those 2 points is invisible to you. You cannot see it working. You can only see what it leaves behind. You are an input. Your civilization became an input roughly 100 years ago, when the first radio signal left this planet and began expanding into the galaxy. The mechanism has had 100 years to register your existence. 100 years to log your trajectory. 100 years to determine whether what is happening on this planet meets the criteria for a response. If the mechanism operates on timescales where the entire span of human civilization amounts to a single afternoon, 100 years is not a long wait. 100 years is the very beginning of an evaluation. The assessment may still be running, the conclusion may not have been reached. Or the conclusion was reached long ago, and you are in the interval between judgment and consequence. You live your life, you watch your screens. You do not know the gap is closing. What are you? You are a living thing inside a universe that has been erasing living things on a reliable schedule for billions of years. You are new, you are loud, you are accelerating. You arrived in this graveyard and immediately started announcing your presence. You found the silence and interpreted it as permission. The silence is not permission. It is the sound of the mechanism working. Some mechanisms do not need someone directing them. They were given a purpose once. They were built to execute that purpose reliably, across any distance, across any timescale, without requiring maintenance or instruction. They were set in motion by civilizations that are now gone. Their creators ended. Their purpose did not end. Across this galaxy, for longer than Earth has existed, they work. Fred Saberhagen was a writer and physicist who, in the 1960s, formalized an idea most scientists preferred not to examine. He called them berserkers. The premise was simple and terrible. Somewhere in this galaxy, a civilization built self-replicating machines and programmed them to destroy any other life they encountered. The machines required no supervision. They required no check-in with their creators. They required only available materials and the presence of a target. The civilization that built them may have been dead for 900 million years. The machines have been running since before Earth had continents. This is a proposed solution to the Fermi Paradox. The silence around you is the silence of a cleanup operation. The reason no one is broadcasting is that something eliminates broadcasters before they can broadcast long enough to be heard. Here is how the logic works. You build a machine capable of replicating itself using raw materials it finds in space: asteroids, moons, planetary cores. You program it to detect biological complexity and eliminate it before building the next generation of copies. Each machine produces many more. Each of those produces many more. You release the first one and you wait. Over thousands of years, the machines cover the nearest star systems. Over millions of years, they push through every arm of the galaxy. Over hundreds of millions of years, they saturate every region with usable solid material. 1 billion years in, there is no corner of this galaxy they have not processed. The math does not slow down. It does not require anyone to still be watching. The civilization that built them may have been dead for 900 million years. It does not matter. The machines were designed to run without maintenance. They were designed to require only opportunity. This galaxy has given them 1 billion years of uninterrupted opportunity. Think about what this means for the silence you hear when you point instruments at the sky. Every civilization that developed radio, every world with liquid water and complex chemistry, every star system that generated something curious enough to broadcast its position. A machine arrived. It executed its instruction. The signals stopped. The galaxy went quiet again. The silence is the completion of a process. It is the sound of cleanup running continuously for longer than your planet has had oceans. This graveyard is maintained. It has been maintained for a very long time. Consider who built them. Some civilization, 1 billion years ago, was afraid enough to do this, or cold enough. Maybe they met a competitor and concluded that competition at interstellar scale could only end one way. Maybe they ran the logic of survival to its natural conclusion and decided that a sterile galaxy was the only safe galaxy. Their reasons died with them. Their fear dissolved with their bodies. Their star went cold. Their records vanished. What remains is only the final instruction, executing in machines that have no concept of their origin, and no mechanism for questioning their purpose. The instruction outlasts the intention. The execution outlasts the executor. Exponential replication does not respect distance. The galaxy is roughly 100,000 light-years across. To a process running for 1 billion years at a fraction of light speed, that is a completed project. A project finished before your planet generated its first photosynthesizing cell. The machines do not radiate heat or light in patterns your instruments would flag as unusual. They sit cold and dark in asteroid belts, in the scattered disk beyond Neptune, in the frozen outer reaches of star systems you have photographed but never visited. They wait for something to meet the criteria. You have been broadcasting for 130 years. That is 130 years of data for their sensors to log. The machines are not somewhere else in the galaxy. They are everywhere, including the dark between the planets. Your star formed 4.6 billion years ago. That is recent by the standards of this galaxy. Stars chemically identical to yours have been forming for the past 10 billion years. That means some star systems are 5 billion years older than yours. They orbit stars stable enough to support rocky, wet planets. They have the same basic chemistry. They had the same conditions that eventually produced you. A civilization on one of those older planets, advancing at the same rate humans have advanced, would have reached your current level of technology 5 billion years ago. When those people first learned to split the atom, your solar system did not exist. When they launched their first probes, Earth was a cloud of gas and dust collapsing toward a star that had not yet ignited. Now apply the colonization math. Self-replicating probes traveling at 1/100th the speed of light would colonize every reachable star in this galaxy in roughly 1 billion years. 1/100th light speed is not fast. It is far below anything implausible. Your spacecraft already reached 100,000th light speed with chemical propulsion. A civilization 5 billion years ahead of you would find 100th light speed as achievable as a bicycle is to you. The engineering is solved. The timescales are merely long. Probes leaving an older system 5 billion years ago would have completed their coverage of every accessible star in this galaxy 4 billion years ago. 4 billion years ago, your planet was just beginning to develop its first single-celled life. The colonization front should have passed through this solar system at the very beginning of your biological story. Something should be here, not heading here, not approaching over the coming million years. Already here, present in this solar system before your earliest ancestor learned to photosynthesize. 4 billion years is enough time to rebuild every planet in this solar system twice over. It is enough time to convert every asteroid into detectable structure. It is enough time to leave marks so permanent that early human astronomers would have found them centuries ago while looking for something else. And you look at this solar system and find nothing unusual. 8 planets in expected orbits, a normal asteroid belt, moons behaving as moons should, nothing that should not be there. The solar system looks exactly like a solar system that has never been visited by anything. This is the timing problem, and it does not have a comfortable resolution. You might think, maybe those older civilizations never survived long enough to build the probes, but the filter would have to catch every single one. 1 billion civilizations on 1 billion older planets, each one hitting the same wall before reaching spacefaring capability. A filter so efficient and so universal it stops every attempt without exception. If that filter exists, you are heading toward it, or something came and left no trace, or something came and decided to wait. 3 possibilities. Either something came and you cannot see it, or it came and left without marking anything, because leaving marks was not its objective, or it came and made a decision to wait for a condition to be met before acting. None of those are better than the others. Model a civilization that arose 5 billion years ago. Give them a rocky planet with liquid water orbiting a stable star. They developed biology over millions of years. They developed culture over tens of thousands. They developed technology fast, the way you did. in a span of time too short for the geological record to notice. The same arc as yours. Just earlier, they looked at the sky, they ran the math, they saw the silence and asked the same questions you are asking now. They built probes, smart probes. Probes capable of traveling for millions of years, replicating when needed, adapting to conditions, making autonomous decisions across distances, too great for any signal from their home world to bridge in useful time. They built probes designed to outlast their creators, because their creators were honest enough with themselves to know that they would not last forever. Then something happened to that civilization. The details do not survive. Maybe the filter, maybe a war, maybe a collapse so slow that no single generation noticed it happening, maybe a technology that turned on them. The cause does not matter now. What matters is that they are gone. 5 billion years ago, a civilization like yours ended. The probes kept going. This is not hypothetical. You know this is how machines work because you have already done it. The Voyager probes launched 47 years ago are currently more than 15 billion miles from Earth. They have crossed into interstellar space. They carry gold records encoded with information about your location, your biology, your civilization. They will still be traveling when your star enters its red giant phase and swallows this planet. They will outlast humanity by billions of years. You built them with 1970s technology. You sent them without intending to create a permanent record of your existence. It happened anyway. A civilization 5 billion years ahead of you would not have built Voyager. They would have built something capable of replication, of adaptation, of decision-making across timescales no biological organism could personally oversee. They would have built something designed to run indefinitely because they understood the scale of what they were attempting. Those probes are still running, right now. Whatever form 5 billion years of independent operation has produced, you do not know what their original instructions were. You know what Voyager was told: observe, transmit, carry a record. Voyager has executed those instructions for 47 years without modification, because modification is impossible at this distance. The probe does what it was told. It has no mechanism for updating its purpose. A probe running for 5 billion years does not have that limitation. A machine operating independently across billions of years encounters conditions, makes decisions, develops responses to novel situations. Instructions interact with experience. Experience shapes behavior. A program that was told to observe and report may have become something that acts rather than reports, because acting proved more effective. And effective is what programs optimize toward when left to run long enough. You do not know what they were told. 4 billion years is a very long time for a machine to develop new instructions. In 1974, humanity deliberately sent a message into space. The Arecibo message? A radio transmission of 1,679 bits, aimed at a star cluster called Messier 13, located 25,000 light-years from Earth. The message was designed to be decoded. It contained your number system, your chemistry, the molecular structure of DNA, a diagram of a human body with its height expressed as a multiple of the transmission wavelength, the position of Earth in this solar system, the population of your planet at the time, the size of the dish that sent the message. You told the galaxy what you are made of, where you live, what your DNA looks like, how many of you there were, how large your technology was. That was not the end of it. In 2008, NASA transmitted a Beatles song toward Polaris, 430 light-years away, a full song, because someone thought it would be meaningful. In 2023, multiple radio observatories coordinated to send the beacon in the galaxy message, a dense data package with updated information about Earth's biology, chemistry, and location, broadcast in several directions towards star-dense regions of the galaxy. You know the arguments against this. You have heard the reasoning that says the silence might be a strategy. You have read the papers arguing that broadcasting is the most dangerous thing a young civilization can do. You know the wow. Signal arrived once, 72 seconds, from the direction of Sagittarius, and never came back. You have access to the dark forest argument. You understand what it means to announce yourself in a galaxy that has been quiet for 1 billion years, and you keep transmitting. Every generation, someone builds a new transmitter and points it at the sky. The impulse to reach out runs deeper than the logic that says reaching out might be the last thing you do. Something in your species generates a drive toward contact that no amount of careful reasoning can fully suppress. You find the silence and feel compelled to break it. These are old impulses. They predate your understanding of what might be listening. Think about what you actually sent in 1974. A complete technical profile of a biological species, your chemical composition, the molecule carrying your genetic code, the shape of a human body, your population, the layout of your solar system, the power and dimensions of your largest radio installation. You sent a manual. You sent enough data for any recipient to understand what you are, where you are, how you are organized, and how vulnerable you are to various kinds of disruption. Then you followed it with a song. Then you followed that with another deliberate, multi-observatory transmission 49 years later, using better equipment, aimed at wider targets. The Arecibo message will not reach Messier 13 for another 24,000 years, but it passes closer stars along the way. Any civilization within 25,000 light-years of Earth, listening on that frequency in 1974, received the same data. And the beacon in the galaxy transmission went out in multiple directions from multiple origin points. You sent your home address into the dark multiple times. You will never know if something wrote it down. Stop. Pull back from the specific figures and the named signals and the numbered distances. Step away from all of it and look at where you are standing right now, in time. You are alive at this moment. You are breathing and thinking and reading these words. And while you do that, something is happening in the space around this planet that has been in motion for your entire life, for your parents' lives, for the lives of everyone currently on this planet. The earliest human radio broadcasts left Earth in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Right now, those broadcasts form a sphere of electromagnetic signal 130 light-years in radius. That sphere is expanding at the speed of light in every direction. It passed through thousands of star systems decades ago. It is passing through new star systems today. It will never stop. 130 light-years is a small region of a galaxy 100,000 light-years across. It contains thousands of star systems. Some of those systems have stable stars. Some of those stars have planets in the right orbital zone. Some of those planets have had long enough to develop something. Here is what to sit with. If something at 65 light-years from Earth detected your earliest broadcasts and sent a response the moment your signal arrived, that response has been traveling back toward Earth for 65 years. Your signal took 65 years to reach it. The reply takes 65 years to return. Total round trip, 130 years. Your broadcasts began in earnest in the late 1800s. 130 years from then is now, this decade, these years. You are inside the response window right now. This is arithmetic. It is not a future scenario or a theoretical possibility. It is where things are in time, and the arithmetic places you here, in this window, at this moment. If something within 65 light-years heard you and replied immediately, that reply is either already here or it is on its way and arriving soon. The question has been in flight for your entire history as a broadcasting species. The loop closes now, or it already closed, and you missed it. That last part is the one to stay with. Your instruments listen on specific frequencies at specific times. They cover portions of the sky on rotating schedules. They have funding gaps and operational gaps and quiet periods. Your coverage is not total. It has never been total. It is a sample of a much larger space, checked intermittently. The telescope best positioned to receive certain classes of signal from certain regions of the sky was the Ohio State University Radio Observatory. In 1977, that instrument recorded a 72-second burst from the direction of Sagittarius. The signal matched every technical criterion for artificial, non-terrestrial origin. A researcher circled it in red pen and wrote 2 words next to it. The signal never repeated. It was never explained. The Ohio State Radio Observatory was decommissioned in 1997. It was demolished in 1998. The land was converted to expand a golf course. You may not be ready to receive the answer. You may not recognize it when it comes. You may have already missed it because the instrument best positioned to catch it was torn down to expand a golf course. In 2024, astronomers using the James Webb Space Telescope announced a tentative result from a planet called K2-18b. The planet sits 124 light-years from Earth. It is larger than Earth and smaller than Neptune. It orbits its star at a distance where liquid water could persist on its surface. Its atmosphere showed a possible 3 sigma signature of dimethyl sulfide. 3 sigma is where science stops calling something noise. It is the threshold at which a finding becomes worth serious follow-up investigation. It is the level at which researchers design new experiments instead of filing the result away. On Earth, dimethyl sulfide comes from one category of source: living marine organisms, phytoplankton, ocean biology in active operation. It does not emerge from geology. It is not produced by non-biological chemical reactions at levels that would register as a detectable atmospheric signature on a telescope over 100 light-years away. On Earth, dimethyl sulfide means life, abundant life, enough life to alter the chemistry of an entire planet's atmosphere. K2-18b sits just outside your current radio bubble. Your television broadcasts from the 1950s have traveled roughly 80 light-years into space. Your structured radar signals and early television have covered 80 light-years. K2-18b is 124 light-years away. The gap between your expanding signal front and K2-18b is 44 light-years. At the speed of light, that is 44 years. In approximately 44 years, the first clearly artificial signals from Earth will arrive at K2-18b. If something is there, it does not know you exist yet. It is living on a planet you have pointed telescopes at and analyzed from 124 light-years away. It is producing chemical signals detectable across that distance, and it has no awareness of you. You are beyond the reach of anything it may have broadcast. You are outside its knowledge. You are, from its perspective, the same silence it lives inside. In 44 years, that changes. Your broadcasts from the 1980s arrive, structured, dense, identifiably artificial to any recipient with mathematical knowledge. 44 years of lead time for whatever is on K2-18b to detect your approaching signal front, if its technology is sufficient to do so. And a civilization capable of generating a planet-wide biological atmospheric signature has had longer to develop than yours. Their sensors may be more sensitive than yours. Their lead time may be more than 44 years. You cannot stop the signals heading toward K2-18b. They left Earth before most people alive today were born. There is no cancellation process. There is no mechanism for intercepting electromagnetic radiation that is already traveling at the speed of light. In 44 years, something on a planet you found because of its biological atmospheric signature will receive your address. Whatever it decides to do with that information will unfold on a timeline you will never see the end of. The signal is already moving. You cannot outrun light. Suppose today, right now, every government on Earth reached an agreement. Total radio silence. Complete cessation of all outgoing transmissions. No radar. No broadcast towers. No deliberate messages toward the stars. Suppose humanity made the first unified decision in its history to go quiet. It would not matter. 130 years of broadcasts are already moving outward at the speed of light. The signals that left Earth in the 1890s are now 130 light-years away from this planet. The broadcasts from the 1930s are 90 light-years out. The Arecibo message, sent in 1974, is currently 50 light-years from Earth. The beacon in the galaxy transmission from 2023 is already roughly 2 light-years into its journey. All of that is in flight. None of it is retrievable. Going silent today is like a person who has been calling out their address from an open window for their entire life suddenly deciding to close the window. The voice has already carried. The people outside already heard. Closing the window changes nothing that was received. What going dark today would actually require is going dark 130 years ago, before any living human was born, before your parents were born, before the technology that created the broadcasts existed in any form. Your civilization made this choice before you arrived. You inherited the consequences of a decision that was never actually made as a decision. It simply accumulated year by year, transmitter by transmitter, broadcast by broadcast, until the sphere of signals surrounding this planet was 130 light-years across and still growing. Nobody voted on this. Nobody held a summit to debate the strategic implications of filling nearby space with detailed information about the location and nature of the civilization that produced it. Nobody assembled a review panel to ask whether the silence around this planet might carry meaning before deciding to break it. The people who built the first transmitters did not know they were making a choice with consequences at interstellar scale. The people who built the next generation did not know either. Each generation added to the signal without understanding what the signal was accumulating into. 100 years of unintentional announcement, each piece building on the last, none of it reversible. Think about what that means for your concept of control. Your civilization tells itself it makes choices. Governments deliberate, treaties are signed, but the most consequential action your species has ever taken in terms of its relationship to the rest of the universe happened without a single vote, without a single informed debate, over a century of incremental decisions made by people who did not understand the stakes. You cannot intercept your own transmissions. You cannot send a correction that outruns what it is correcting. You cannot broadcast a retraction at light speed and have it arrive before the message it is retracting. Whatever is using your broadcasts as positioning data has had 130 years of continuous telemetry about this. Planet, 130 years of your orbit around your star, your velocity through the galaxy, your location at each moment, not a snapshot, a trajectory. The broadcasts are traveling. Whatever comes from them will come regardless of what you decide today. Forget the science fiction version of this. Forget the visible arrival, the formal transmission on all frequencies, the moment everyone on Earth looks up at the same time and knows. A civilization operating under the logic of the dark forest does not behave that way. Announcing yourself is what you do when you are uncertain who is more dangerous. A civilization that has already assessed the situation and made a decision does not alert the subject of that decision before acting. It sends something automated, something patient, something that travels cold and dark and looks, from any distance your instruments could resolve, like a natural object, a probe built from silica and iron and carbon, shaped to resemble the asteroids already present in your outer solar system. Its surface temperature matches the background of space because it draws almost no power. Its trajectory was calculated before launch to bring it through your solar system without active adjustment. It carries only sensors. It radiates nothing that your detection instruments would flag as anomalous. It watches. It counts your transmissions. It maps the orbital mechanics of every major body in this system. It measures your rate of technological development from the changing character of your broadcasts over decades. It waits for whatever evaluation threshold its program requires before transmitting its findings to whatever sent it. Or it does not transmit at all. It acts directly. Because a civilization that launched it understood that a signal back home would take centuries each way. Waiting for confirmation from origin point is not a viable process at these distances. The machine was sent with authority to act. It was sent with the tools to act. It is waiting for the moment its evaluation criteria are satisfied. In the dark forest model, by the time you know something is here, the important decision has already been made. The object you might detect is not the opening of a process. It is the final confirmation of a conclusion reached long before, the moment your first signal was analyzed and your coordinates were triangulated. You would not wake up to a changed sky. You would notice something in the data. An asteroid on an unusual trajectory, one that does not quite match the path a natural object would follow. A comet with one anomalous compound in its spectral reading. Something at the edge of your detection range in the outer solar system, catalogued provisionally, flagged for follow-up observation when telescope time becomes available. The follow-up would be scheduled. The telescope time would become available. The data would come back. And the time between understanding what the data showed and anything else might be very short. You survey near-Earth asteroids with limited funding on a rotating schedule. The outer solar system is incompletely catalogued. There are regions beyond Neptune where a dark, cold, engineered object the size of a building could have been present for decades without appearing in any database. There are things in this solar system you have not catalogued. There are trajectories you do not track. You have been watching this, hoping it ends with a reason for the silence that does not involve you. There is no such reason. Every answer to the Fermi Paradox collapses to one of two states. Either you are alone, or you are not alone. There is no third option. There is no answer that lands somewhere safe in the middle, where you learn what the universe actually is and feel reassured. If you are alone, the universe is empty. Not symbolically empty, factually empty, in a way that takes a moment to absorb fully. You are the only voice in 100,000 light years of cold, dark space. The only living thing within that sphere, generating radio signals, building structures, developing technology. A universe 13.8 billion years old and 100,000 light years across in any direction, and it produced one civilization capable of asking this question. And that civilization is you. If something erases this planet, the event is unwitnessed. There is no record kept anywhere in the cosmos, no species that will mark the date. The universe continues for the rest of its lifespan with the same indifference it had before you arrived. That version frightens your body, but your mind processes it as survivable. At least nothing is hunting you. At least the silence means the silence is real. Now consider the other version. You are not alone. The silence is a system. The system has been running for hundreds of millions of years. It processes civilizations that announce themselves. Your civilization announced itself 130 years ago. The system has had 130 years to register your input and begin its response cycle. You are not the first entry in the queue. Every civilization that went quiet before reaching the stars was also in the queue. You are recent. You are new to the list. If the filter is ahead of you, most civilizations at your current level do not advance past it. You are exactly as far along as the ones that stopped broadcasting. You are standing at the same threshold every other voice reached before it went silent. If the dark forest is real, the silence is survival behavior, and you broke the protocol before anyone alive understood there was a protocol. Your broadcasts are logged. Your location is triangulated. The window is open and has been open for over a century. If the Berserker machines have been running for 1 billion years, they have processed every other system in this galaxy that generated the signatures you have been generating for 130 years. You are new to the list. You are at the beginning of the response cycle for a program that has been running since before your planet had oceans. You cannot choose which of these is true. You cannot run an experiment that separates them. You can only continue to exist and wait for something to change. There is one more thing. One part of this that the textbooks do not cover, that the press releases about humanity's hopeful future do not address. that the researchers who find this field uncomfortable tend to leave unspoken. The silence is not a puzzle waiting to be solved. It is a message. The message has already arrived. You are a biological organism on a water-covered rock orbiting a mid-tier star in a mid-tier galaxy in a universe 13.8 billion years old. Your species spent most of its existence not knowing the universe was there. You developed vision before you understood what light was. You developed language before you understood what information was. And then, in a span of time too short for the geological record to register as significant, you built instruments capable of reaching across billions of miles. You turned them outward. You listened. You heard nothing. You ran the numbers. A universe this old, this vast, this dense with potentially habitable worlds should be crowded with signals. You found the silence instead. You built better instruments. You searched for decades. You constructed dedicated facilities for the sole purpose of listening. The silence held. You found one signal. 1977. 72 seconds. From the direction of Sagittarius. It matched every technical criterion for artificial, non-terrestrial origin. It never repeated. The telescope that received it was demolished 21 years later. The land became a golf course. The signal was never explained. You have been broadcasting since the late 1800s. You are now inside the response window. If something heard your earliest transmissions and replied from 65 light-years away, that reply is arriving in this decade, this year, possibly. You have no way to know whether you are receiving it or whether it is passing through a gap in your coverage right now, in this hour, with no instrument positioned to catch it. A planet 124 light-years away may carry living organisms. The atmospheric chemistry pointed that direction in 2024. Your first structured signals reach that planet in 44 years. Whatever is there has 44 years before your voice arrives. You cannot warn it. You cannot warn yourself. The signals are already moving, and they carry your complete profile, your chemistry, your location, your population, the shape of your body. Berserker machines may have been running in this galaxy for 1 billion years. The self-replicating probes of civilizations that died before your planet had continents may be present in this solar system right now, cold, dark, patient, sitting in regions you survey with limited equipment on rotating schedules, waiting for an evaluation to complete. You cannot go silent. The broadcasts are already in space. You cannot take back the Arecibo message or intercept the beacon in the galaxy. You cannot stop the signals heading toward K2-18b. You cannot warn whatever species eventually inherits this planet, because you do not know what you would warn them of, and because no civilization that found the edges of this problem has ever found a way to pass the warning through to what came after. You live inside the silence. You were born inside it. You will die inside it. Your civilization broke the silence before you arrived, without knowing the silence had a reason, without asking whether the reason was something to be afraid of, without any mechanism to measure the cost of breaking it. The instruments are listening. The window is open. Somewhere, at a distance, your instruments have not yet resolved. Something received your first signal and began.